Hey ladies and gentlemen, Stephen here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. Thank you all for watching. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the newest release by the company Calvin Klein. And this is called Calvin Klein Eternity Eau de Parfum. So make sure to stay tuned. So it's been a long time since the original Calvin Klein Eternity came out, actually back in 1990. And I remember having a bottle of that when I was much younger, actually when I was in elementary school. And I remember begging my mother to purchase me this fragrance because I smelled it on somebody else. I really loved it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really nice sort of manly scent. And I remember really falling in love with that lavender geranium sort of vibe that the original Calvin Klein Eternity gives off. Now this is the eau de parfum, and I think the most obvious visual difference is the fact that this one has this darker green juice on the inside. Sure enough, this one does feature the note of cypress, which is also one of the main changes in the note breakdown as well. So if you take a look at the original 1990 release, which was composed by Carlos Benaim, and I love the fragrances that he's made, especially the ones that he's made for Edward Bess. I take a look at the suede leather, and then you have the lavender and the geranium, there's the myrtle, some aromatic choices in there as well. And it really revolves around this note of lavender that kind of conveys this youthful, but also classy masculine feel. And I think lavender is a note that we see a lot in barbershop fragrances as well as fougere fragrances. And I think it's a really nice artistic expression. In the case of this one, you do have a lot of those notes from the original retained, but you also have the inclusion of the cypress note, which kind of makes it lean in green territory. But we'll talk about just how prominent or how strong that note is. We'll also talk about whether or not this is a true flanker in the sense that this smells like the original Eternity, or maybe is it just an amplified version? Is it a totally different scent, or is it a mild change, something that the original Eternity fans would still like to purchase? We'll talk about all of that. Let's start with the presentation. I don't have the box for this fragrance because I ended up purchasing the 2 set that came with the big bottle that you see here and also the 1-ounce bottle that I gifted to my friend Carlos. But in the case of the presentation, I was really big and bulky, so I threw away the box, but we do have the bottle here. So the bottle looks very similar to the original Eternity. Everything is the same. Silver collar, silver cap. Actually, there's no cap. There's a built-in atomizer. The only difference is that it says eau de parfum on the front, and the juice is much darker. It's much more green and verdant than the original. On the very bottom of the bottle, you will have a sticker with your information if you're looking to authenticate your purchase, and the serial number is printed in black ink. And in terms of the atomizer on this one, the distribution is nice and wide, very similar to the eau de toilette. Let's continue with the smell. So as soon as this fragrance opens up, you are reminded of Calvin Klein's Eternity. And so for some reason it jogs the same memories as the original Eternity, and I've certainly made a lot of memories with that fragrance. Not only did I have the fragrance, but I also had the body wash and the lotion, and I was Eternity scented for a very good portion of my young life. And so this one, while it is conveying a lot of those similar memories and those similar vibes that you would also get from the original Eternity, there's still something in here that's done differently. And I commend that. I like the fact that this is a fragrance that pays tribute or homage to the original Eternity. I think, especially in the case of like a Cool Water Intense, the Intense version smells nothing like the original. And we see a lot of designer scents doing that, where they don't really smell similar to the original, and they're sort of just banking on the name or hoping that fans of the original will end up purchasing that one as well. In the case of this one, this is a true flanker. So that's a plus. That's good news. As far as there being much of a differentiation, I don't think there's much. I think when you smell them side by side, the differences are made clear. I think that in the opening is where you will be able to sniff most of those differences. As it starts to dry down, however, you will get a lot of that Eternity skeleton that resides in this one. And it's good that it's the backbone of the scent, but perhaps there will be a certain chunk of consumers out there that were hoping for this one to be a little bit more different. I think in terms of the performance, it has been amplified. In terms of the smell, it is a little bit more interesting. And I like that, the original is a work of art. I think a lot of us will agree on that. And I think that in the case of this one being a little bit different, I like that it didn't try to reinvent the wheel. It didn't compromise the artistic merit of the original, but also did things in a way that was slightly different from the original. In terms of that cypress note in here, I don't think it's too strong. I don't think that the cypress note ever leans as far as like an Italian cypress by Tom Ford. And there are a lot of overly green fragrances out there, and I think that the presence of it could have potentially landed it in those 80s powerhouse types of scents where you have the fir and the pine needle and the oak moss and the cypress and all that stuff. That's not what you're going to get from this one. So I think that that's a good thing. It doesn't make it smell mature or dated, or it doesn't give it an old world feel. Now, I know a lot of people out there personally don't find those fragrances to smell dated, and that's wonderful. And I'm not saying it does, but that seems to be the narrative among a lot of people nowadays. I do like this one. I like the way that it smells. I think that because of the memories that are still tied to the original Eternity, there's still a little bit of that classic smell. And I think that for somebody to smell it in the air, they will be reminded of the original, and thus it might still be a choice that is not going to smell ultra contemporary. So just keep that in mind. I actually had an opportunity to shoot a video with my friend Justin Copeland when he visited New York in November, actually November 2nd. So I originally reviewed this one more than a month ago, but I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. And when I forget, whenever I get a notification that comes in as I'm recording, there's this crackling noise that always happens in the background, and it's so annoying. But I was able to salvage some of the footage from that collaboration, so here you go.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is very reminiscent of the original, which, to be honest, I didn't grow up smelling a whole lot.
Yeah.
I smelled it here and there, and I definitely saw it on ads and saw it at department stores, and figured it was popular. Um, but I've come back to it since later and have smelled it and have found it really pleasant. Not something that I currently own.
Right.
But in regards to this new release, the EDP version or the intense version, is that what they're
Yeah, the
calling it?
EDP.
EDP. Again, very reminiscent. Definitely has more of a richer quality to it.
So a very special thank you to Justin Copeland for being on the channel, and I'm deeply sorry that we didn't have more of an opportunity to shoot more videos, but also that I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. I do apologize for that. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. In giving this fragrance my overall assessment, I did first take a look at the uniqueness and the overall smell, and this is not a unique fragrance in the sense that it does smell very similar to the original Calvin Klein Eternity, but this is a flanker, so it does get a pass. In terms of the overall smell, it smells pleasant, and I think that fans of the original Eternity will also be surprised by this one, and they will also have an appreciation for this one. However, if you were in the market for something totally new, that's not what you're going to get here, and also this might remind people of the original Eternity, and so for that reason, I think that a lot of people might not find this one to be as youthful or as contemporary, I should say. It might still be a little stuck in the 90s. In terms of the longevity, great. I got about 8 hours on my skin. Projection was great for the first hour and a half to 2 hours, but it didn't become a skin scent up until about that 6 hour mark. So the performance on this one is quite good. In terms of the versatility, I can see this one being worn all year round. I think the original Eternity with the aromatic ingredients and lavender was probably leaning a little bit more towards the springtime, perhaps summer with a light application. This one I think can be worn all year round. In terms of occasions, I think you can wear this one casually, but you can also wear this one formally, and I do think that this one leans masculine just because of that association with the original. In terms of the presentation, I like that they didn't change things up for this one, and this is a much closer iteration to the original than many of the summer flankers, and also Eternity Now. Eternity Now was this coconut heavy flanker that smelled nothing like the original Eternity, and so for a flanker that actually smells slightly different, I think they did a good job with this one. So that's my final verdict. My final verdict is I actually really enjoy the scent for this one. I do find it to be quite similar to the original, but it is a flanker, so what did you expect? But because it jogs the same memories, it does remind me of the 90s, and so for that reason, this is probably one that I wouldn't wear, just because I want to wear something a little bit more new, something a bit more contemporary, but fans of the original Eternity will inevitably enjoy this one as well. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was my review of Calvin Klein Eternity Eau de Parfum. If you own or have tried this fragrance, I would love to know what you think. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. Also, if you are new to this channel and you took something of value from this video, I would appreciate it if you could support this channel by subscribing to it. That is all I ask. All it requires is you clicking that red button in the corner, and this way, whenever I do upload future fragrance-related content, it will get delivered straight to your feed. You never need to worry about missing any of my future uploads. Thanks again for watching. I love you all sincerely, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.